The way Marvel reveals light shadows of the Doctor Doom tucked away inside a merchandising expo in China instead of through some bombastic Comic-Con trailer makes it all the more fascinating. It's almost like Marvel wanted to quietly slip this into the bloodstream of fan culture, knowing full well it would explode once people connected the dots. For me, the second I caught sight of that hooded silhouette and that gleam of green energy surrounding the mask, I knew Marvel was telling us something huge. Doctor Doom isn't just coming. He's arriving in a way that changes everything we thought we knew about the multiverse saga. Welcome to MovieCast. I'm Liam Harrison, and today we're breaking down this seismic shift in the MCU, why Robert Downey Jr. returning as Doctor Doom is such a game changer, how this teaser hidden in product marketing tells us more than Marvel probably wanted, and what it all means for Avengers Doomsday and beyond. If you're new here, this channel is all about going deep into film theory, character arcs, and those hidden details studios think we'll gloss over. But if you've been following along, you know I love pulling at those threads until the bigger picture emerges. So buckle up, because today's breakdown is about as big as it gets. What instantly grabbed me wasn't just that RDJ was back, it was who he was back as. Tony Stark was all about tech, science, and pushing the limits of engineering. Doom, on the other hand, is about fusion, melding science with sorcery, ruling not just through intellect but through sheer force of will and mystical dominance. The teaser that leaked from that showcase makes that crystal clear. The green aura surrounding his armor doesn't look like some random energy effect. It looks alive, like Doom is commanding forces beyond human comprehension. And the framing of the imagery is deliberate. He's not just shown as another baddie for the Avengers to fight, he's placed front and center, like the axis around which every other storyline is going to rotate. That's Marvel telling us that Doom isn't just a threat, he's the threat. Now, I want to zoom in on the armor design, because this is where Marvel slipped in a clever layer of storytelling. Back in that Fantastic Four post-credit tease, Doom's mask had this raw, almost retro look, something that felt like it came straight out of the early Stan Lee and Jack Kirby comics. That made sense as a nod to his roots. But here, this armor is refined, sleeker, more modern, and clearly enhanced with elements that push it past just medieval meets Iron Man territory. The plating looks like it's both forged and enchanted. The edges glow faintly, as though sigils are etched into the very metal. And the way the mask seals onto his face, it's not just mechanical, it feels ritualistic, like part of some binding spell. What really gets me is how much this mirrors Tony Stark's evolution across his suits. Remember how every new Iron Man film gave us an upgraded version showing his growth? Doom seems to be getting the same treatment, and that parallel is too intentional to ignore. To me, this hints that part of RDJ's casting as Doom is Marvel wanting to show us a distorted reflection of Tony Stark, a what-if scenario brought into reality, where instead of using his gifts to save the world, he channels them to dominate it. And then there's the wildest part, the 10 rings. In the teaser art, Doom is shown wielding them, and not in some decorative way, they're actively glowing, projecting new runes and symbols we've never seen before in the MCU. For anyone who remembers Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, those artifacts were already shrouded in mystery, tied to origins beyond Earth, possibly even beyond this dimension. Now, put them in the hands of Doom, someone who bridges technology and mysticism, and suddenly you've got a whole new mythology opening up. I can't help but think Marvel is using Doom to fully unlock the truth behind the 10 rings, something that goes deeper than anything Shang-Chi or even Wong hinted at. It makes sense, because if you want to establish Doom as a Thanos-level figure, he can't just have armor and spells, he needs artifacts that carry cosmic weight. The 10 rings give him exactly that. But Marvel didn't stop there. If you look closely at Doom's chest clasp in the promo images, you'll notice strange markings etched into it. At first glance, they just look ornamental, like stylized engravings. But Marvel doesn't do random. These could be sigils tied to ancient magic, or perhaps references to Marvel lore that's still on the horizon. Imagine if these markings connect Doom not just to sorcery, but to the broader multiverse lore, maybe even tying him to Kang's tech, the Eternals' cosmic energy, or something linked to Secret Wars. These tiny details are the kind of foreshadowing Marvel loves to sprinkle in for fans who obsess over still frames. Another chilling image from the teaser shows Doom lifting an opponent with one hand, suspended in midair. If you've read Secret Wars, you know the panel I'm talking about, Doom brutally killing Thanos by ripping out his spine. Of course, Disney won't replicate that exact brutality, but even the implication is enough to set the tone. This is Doom as Marvel wants us to see him, not just a schemer, not just a political tyrant, but someone who can go toe-to-toe with the most powerful beings in existence and come out on top. And that kind of imagery plants a seed in the audience's mind. When this guy shows up, nobody is safe. What's equally fascinating is how Marvel ties Doom's reveal to the broader roster of teams. In the teaser, we see flashes of symbols, the Avengers A, the Fantastic Four 4, the Black Panther insignia, and even the X-Men X. Each of these logos flickers into view as Doom channels energy from the 10 rings. It's subtle, but symbolically massive. It suggests that all these factions, whether they want to or not, are going to find themselves pulled into Doom's gravitational field. He's the black hole in the center of the multiverse, and everyone else is orbiting around him. The presence of Shuri's Black Panther design tells me Wakanda will play a significant role, probably because of Vibranium's mystical and technological potential. And the Fantastic Four? Rumors say Reed Richards' ship may act as a bridge between universes, making them essential players in the incursions that Doom is manipulating. And then, of course, there's the X-Men. That X flashing across the teaser sent chills down my spine. Kevin Feige has been teasing their arrival for years, and this feels like Marvel finally planting their flag. Whether we get classic 90s animated series inspired suits or some fresh redesign, the timing couldn't be better. By tying their entrance to Doom, Marvel ensures their arrival isn't just a cameo, it's part of the grander conflict. Imagine how epic it's going to feel seeing mutants, Avengers, Wakandans, and the Fantastic Four all rallying, maybe not even by choice because Doom's rise forces their hands. Here's what I think is key. Marvel isn't just setting up another villain to be defeated. They're establishing Doom as the ideological center of this saga. And what makes Doom so compelling in the comics is that he doesn't see himself as the villain. He sees himself as the savior. The one person smart enough, powerful enough, and ruthless enough to do what must be done. If the leaks are true, we may even see him assemble his own multiversal Avengers, a team of alternate heroes loyal to him. That's the perfect way to bring back actors like Chris Evans or Scarlett Johansson without undoing their characters' sacrifices. Imagine Evans returning, but not as our Steve Rogers. Instead, as a version of Cap whose choices during his time traveling in Endgame created massive incursions. That flips his legacy in a way that feels tragic and brilliant all at once. And this brings me to why Marvel chose to reveal Doom like this. Not with a massive Hall H trailer, not with a flashy Disney Plus special, but through product reveals. The movie's still more than a year away, delayed into December of next year, and fans have been starving for something tangible. Marvel knows the fandom well. They know that toy leaks, poster teases, and merch drops spread like wildfire. By planting Doom's reveal in this context, they keep the hype alive while testing reactions. And the reaction? Predictably massive. Some fans are ecstatic to see RDJ return in any form. Others are nervous about tampering with Iron Man's legacy. But me? I think this is the smartest move Marvel could make. Tony Stark's story ended beautifully. That shouldn't be touched. But Robert Downey Jr. as Victor Von Doom, That's not just nostalgia, it's reinvention. It's using the audience's attachment to RDJ to amplify the weight of Doom's presence. And honestly, if there's anyone who can pull off a character that is both terrifying and sympathetic, both brilliant and brutal, it's him. So when I step back and look at this whole teaser, the armor, the 10 rings, the mystical sigils, the team logos swirling around, and Doom towering over his enemies, it feels less like a simple reveal and more like Marvel laying down the chessboard. Doom is the king piece. Everyone else is a player moving toward an inevitable clash. And just like we saw with Infinity War, the narrative is going to splinter across multiple fronts, with different factions handling different threats until it all converges. That convergence is where Doom becomes unstoppable. Not because he's evil, but because in his own mind, he's the only one capable of saving the multiverse from collapsing. And that twisted sense of heroism, that's what makes him one of the greatest villains ever created. When I think about the ripple effect of this reveal, the first thing that comes to mind is how Marvel has always relied on long-term narrative payoffs. With Thanos, we had those tiny breadcrumbs scattered over years, an in-credit smile here, a quick mention there, before he finally stood up in Infinity War and revealed his plan. Doom, though, is different. He's not being teased in half shadows for a decade. Marvel is putting him front and center right now, signaling that his presence is unavoidable and that every thread we've been following, whether it's Kang, the multiverse, the 10 rings, or even Wakanda's vibranium, will eventually knot together with him as the anchor. That's why I don't think this was an accidental leak at a consumer showcase. I think Marvel intentionally seeded Doom early because they know he's not just another villain. He's going to define this entire era of storytelling. And what excites me most is that we're seeing RDJ's return used as a storytelling weapon. It's not just fan service. It's not just nostalgia. It's a weapon that reshapes how we view the MCU's legacy. One of the most fascinating aspects of Doom as a character is how he blends elements from both Iron Man and Doctor Strange. And I think that's why Robert Downey Jr. fits this role so perfectly. On one side, you've got Stark's science-driven ingenuity, that obsession with building the perfect system to protect the world. On the other side, you've got Strange's dive into mysticism, wielding powers that defy logic and physics. Doom merges these into something terrifying, a man who can out-engineer Tony and outcast Strange. That's why he works so well as a multiversal threat, because he's literally the embodiment of two archetypes Marvel has already trained us to respect. Imagine being an Avenger facing him. Do you call on your tech guys? Doom's ahead of them. Do you call on your sorcerers? He's ahead of them too. The idea that no one group has the tools to defeat him alone is exactly what makes him so dangerous, and it explains why Marvel is making his reveal such a centerpiece. Now, let's talk about the mystical aura we saw around his throne. A lot of fans speculated it might be tied to the Time Stone, since green energy is usually Marvel's shorthand for that. But if you look closely, it doesn't have the crystalline structure or the geometric patterns associated with the stones. Instead, it feels raw, almost like arcane fire leaking through the cracks of reality itself. This is important because it tells us Doom isn't just borrowing from existing MCU sources. He's not wielding something recycled. He's bringing in a new flavor of magic that expands the lore. And I can't help but wonder if Marvel is planting seeds for a new hierarchy of power. In the Infinity Saga, the stones were the pinnacle. But in the Multiverse Saga, it looks like artifacts, incantations, and multiversal energy are the real game changers. Doom wielding the 10 rings is already evidence of that shift. The aura around him, that's Marvel saying there's power out there beyond the Infinity Stones, and Doom is the first to seize it. What I find particularly clever is how this design ties back to Doom's origins in the comics. Victor Von Doom has always been about transcending boundaries, never content with being just a scientist or just a sorcerer. His arrogance demands that he be both, and better than anyone else. Translating that into the MCU, Marvel seems to be using this duality as a narrative contrast to Tony Stark. Stark always saw limitations in himself. He doubted. He struggled. He was haunted by guilt. Doom? Doom rejects the very idea of limitation. He believes he deserves everything. So when we watch RDJ step into that armor, there's going to be this uncanny sense of recognition. The face looks familiar. The voice reminds us of Tony, but the ideology is twisted. That's powerful storytelling. It forces us to confront the what if of Tony Stark gone wrong, while also giving us a Doom that feels fresh and intimidating in his own right. And then there's the merchandising angle, which I think deserves more attention. People tend to shrug off toy leaks, but Marvel's history proves that merch often reveals the roadmap before the films do. Remember when Lego sets spoiled the Hulkbuster suit? Or when posters gave us the first real looks at Spider-Man's upgraded suits before the trailers dropped? That's the pattern repeating here. By showing Doom through consumer products first, Marvel is signaling confidence. They're saying, we don't need to hide him in shadows. We're ready for you to see him. And honestly, that's bold. It shows Marvel isn't worried about overexposure because Doom isn't a gimmick cameo. He's a central figure, someone who will be threaded through multiple projects leading up to Avengers Doomsday. To me, that suggests Doom's arc won't be confined to one movie. We'll see his influence ripple through upcoming projects, just like Thanos quietly influenced events long before he snapped his fingers. Another major detail we have to unpack is the presence of alternate versions of characters. If the rumors are accurate, Doom is assembling his own coalition of multiversal heroes, what some are already calling his Dark Avengers. This concept excites me because it's not only a chance for Marvel to bring back familiar faces, but also to twist them in fascinating ways. Imagine a Black Panther variant who sides with Doom because his Wakanda was destroyed in an incursion. Or a Thor variant who believes Doom offers stability, where the multiverse offers only chaos. Even more chilling, what if Doom recruits a version of Tony Stark from another universe? That would be the ultimate mindbender. Robert Downey Jr. playing Doom facing off against Robert Downey Jr. as Stark. Marvel has the technology and the budget to pull that off, and it would be one of the most surreal, emotionally charged confrontations the MCU has ever attempted. This idea also recontextualizes Endgame in a huge way. If alternate Steve Rogers returns because his choice to stay with Peggy caused fractures in the multiverse, then Doom using him as a soldier in his army would be tragic symmetry. Cap's greatest personal victory becomes the seed of disaster. And that's exactly the kind of layered storytelling Marvel thrives on. They love to twist what we thought were closed chapters into fuel for new conflicts. And bringing Chris Evans back as a corrupted version of Cap would be both nostalgic and devastating, especially if he stands across from Sam Wilson's Captain America. That's not just a fight, it's a symbolic clash of legacies. Now, about Wakanda's role. That flash of Shuri's updated Black Panther suit in the teaser can't be ignored. Vibranium has always been a resource Marvel treats like a wild card, capable of powering suits, absorbing energy, and even connecting to mystical planes like the ancestral realm. If Doom wants vibranium, it's not just for armor. It's for something bigger. I think he's after vibranium as a key to multiversal stability. Maybe it's the one element strong enough to survive incursions, or maybe it acts as a conductor for the Ten Rings energy. Either way, Wakanda being dragged into this fight raises the stakes because it means Doom isn't just targeting abstract cosmic forces, he's targeting tangible earthly nations that audiences care about deeply. What I also find fascinating is how the Fantastic Four fit into this puzzle. Reed Richards' wormhole tech has already been teased as a method for crossing universes. If that's true, then their ship could be Doom's entry point into manipulating incursions. This is poetic because Doom and Reed have always had a rivalry defined by intellect and ego. To translate that rivalry into the MCU, Marvel doesn't need to do much, just put Doom and Reed in the same room and sparks will fly. And if Doom uses Reed's own technology against him, that's classic Doom storytelling straight from the comics. It's not just about defeating his enemies, it's about proving he's superior to them on every level. And then there's the X-Men. That flicker of the X logo wasn't random. I think Marvel is deliberately using Doom's rise as the bridge to introduce mutants into the mainline MCU. Think about it. What better way to explain why the X-Men suddenly appear than through multiversal incursions caused by Doom? It lets Marvel cherry-pick which versions of the characters they want to use, while also making their arrival feel narratively essential rather than forced. And if Doom sees mutants as assets, beings who could help him reshape reality, then their debut becomes immediately tied to the central conflict, rather than existing on the sidelines. Stepping back, what strikes me is how deliberate Marvel's chessboard looks right now. Every piece, the Avengers, Fantastic Four, Wakanda, the X-Men, is being positioned around Doom. And instead of giving us a one-dimensional villain, Marvel is crafting a figure who could easily argue he's the true protagonist. That's what makes this so compelling. Doom doesn't twirl his mustache and laugh maniacally. He doesn't think he's evil. He thinks he's the only one brave enough to seize power when everyone else hesitates. And with RDJ delivering that ideology, it's going to hit differently. We've spent over a decade watching him save the universe. Now we're going to watch him try to rule it. And that contrast, that's where the emotional punch lies. What really stands out to me about this whole setup is how Marvel isn't just introducing Doom as a boss fight character. They're shaping him into a philosophy. If Thanos was about balance and King was about control through time, Doom's ideology is something far more personal. Doom believes the multiverse is broken because it's ruled by people who hesitate, compromise, and second-guess themselves. His philosophy is simple. The multiverse doesn't need democracy or committees, it needs him. A singular mind with the genius to understand both science and sorcery, and the will to enforce his vision without question. That's why RDJ is such an inspired choice. We, the audience, are conditioned to trust his face. We've seen him stand in front of villains, aliens, and literal gods and declare, "I am Iron Man." So when that same actor tells us the multiverse must bend to his rule, part of us almost wants to believe him. That's what makes Doom dangerous, not just his powers, but the seductive logic behind them. I've always thought the best villains are mirrors of the heroes, and Doom is exactly that. When you break it down, he's what Tony Stark could have become. Remember back in Age of Ultron when Tony justified creating Ultron as a suit of armor around the world? That was his arrogance pushing past caution, convinced only he could prevent disaster. Now imagine if Tony never stopped walking down that road. Imagine if he fully embraced the idea that he alone had the answers. That's Doom in a nutshell. And because Marvel is using RDJ for this role, it isn't just a thematic echo, it's a literal one. Every time Doom speaks, we'll hear Tony Stark's cadence. Every time he makes a declaration, audiences will be forced to reconcile the fact that this could have been Tony. That emotional tension is something no amount of CGI spectacle could replace. It's why this reveal feels so monumental. The teaser imagery makes it clear that Doom isn't just operating from Latveria, his usual stronghold in the comics. Instead, he's framed as a multiversal sovereign, sitting on a throne that looks like it's pieced together from fragments of different worlds. That detail fascinates me because it suggests Doom isn't just ruling one Earth, he's consolidating power across collapsing realities. Maybe his throne is literally built from the remnants of destroyed universes, each fragment representing his conquest. If that's true, then Marvel is visually coding Doom as the ultimate survivor. Where other universes crumble under incursions, Doom rebuilds, assimilates, and strengthens himself. That makes him a terrifying foil to the Avengers because they fight to preserve their world while Doom thrives on destruction itself. And then there's the army. In the comics, Doom has Doombots, massive legions of robotic soldiers that enforce his will. But in the MCU, it looks like Marvel is taking that concept and blending it with the multiverse. Instead of just mindless robots, Doom's forces could be alternate versions of heroes who have pledged loyalty to him. Imagine the psychological warfare of that. Facing an endless army of Doombots is one thing, but facing a variant Natasha Romanoff who serves Doom willingly, or a Spider-Man who believes Doom is the rightful ruler. That's the kind of storytelling that hits audiences in the gut. And from a production standpoint, it gives Marvel freedom to bring back beloved actors without breaking continuity. They don't need to undo deaths or rewrite endings. They just need to show us another path those characters could have taken. This raises an intriguing possibility. What if Doom himself is a variant? Not just a reimagined version of Victor Von Doom, but specifically a Tony Stark variant who took a darker path. Think about it. RDJ is playing him after all. What if this Doom is a Tony, just not the one we knew? That would explain the design parallels between his armor and Iron Man's. It would explain his obsession with both technology and mystical artifacts, since our Tony was already dabbling with cosmic forces by the end of his arc. And narratively, it would pack a massive punch. Instead of just RDJ as Doom, it becomes Tony Stark became Doom in another universe, and now he's here to claim everything. That twist would instantly reframe the entire MCU. Every sacrifice Tony made, every lesson he learned suddenly has a mirror version that rejected it all. And if Marvel decides to play that card, it would be one of the boldest moves they've ever made. Of course, that leads to another key question. What about Kang? We know Marvel's original plan was to make Kang the big bad of the multiverse saga. But with Doom taking center stage now, it feels like Marvel might be pivoting. And honestly, it makes sense. Kang is a fascinating character, but general audiences never connected with him the way they did with Thanos. Doom, on the other hand, has name recognition. He's been in animated shows, video games, and even earlier Fantastic Four films. People know the mask, they know the name, even if they don't know all the lore. And by casting RDJ, Marvel ensures audiences will instantly invest. So how does Kang fit into this? My theory is that Doom will use Kang's own failures as part of his rise. Maybe Kang's incursions destabilize the multiverse, and Doom positions himself as the only one capable of fixing it. That way, Kang becomes a stepping stone, a prelude to Doom's true ascension. And I think this is where Secret Wars comes into play. In the comics, Doom takes control of Battleworld, a patchwork planet formed from the remnants of destroyed universes. He declares himself God Emperor Doom, reshaping reality to his will. If Marvel is heading in that direction, then Avengers Doomsday could be the prelude to that storyline. The throne imagery, the multiversal fragments, the army of variants, all of it feels like setup for Doom creating his own perfect universe. And that's terrifying, because unlike Thanos, who simply wanted to eliminate half of life, Doom wants everything. He wants to dictate not just who lives or dies, but what reality itself looks like. What excites me most about this possibility is how it allows Marvel to bring back nearly anyone. Hugh Jackman's Wolverine? Check. A younger Magneto? Check. Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man? Why not? Battleworld gives Marvel the license to mix and match, pulling characters from across decades of storytelling and placing them on the same stage. And Doom sitting at the center becomes the connective tissue that makes it all feel coherent. That's why the teaser is so much more than a toy reveal. It's the opening move in what could be the most ambitious crossover we've ever seen on screen. At the heart of all this, though, is Doom's belief system. He doesn't want to destroy reality just for fun. He wants to fix it on his terms. And if that means erasing billions of lives or rewriting entire worlds, so be it. That's what makes him terrifying. Not because he's insane, but because he's rational. He can stand in front of the Avengers, look them in the eyes, and explain why he's right. And a small part of us, as the audience, might actually agree. That's the mark of a great villain. You don't just fear them, you understand them. The biggest question sitting in my mind after digesting all of this is simple. How do Earth's mightiest heroes actually react to Doom's rise? Because Marvel isn't just setting him up as a villain to punch in the final act. They're setting him up as a gravitational force that pulls every single character into his orbit. That means the Avengers can't just assemble once and charge at him like they did with Thanos. They're going to splinter, argue, and maybe even question whether Doom's vision actually makes sense. I keep circling back to how fractured the Avengers already are. The original team is gone. The new lineup hasn't fully solidified. You've got Sam Wilson trying to live up to Steve Rogers' mantle, Shuri balancing Wakanda's future, characters like Shang-Chi still figuring out their place, and newer heroes like Ms. Marvel and Kate Bishop trying to prove themselves. Now throw Doom into that mix, a figure who commands both fear and strange respect, and you've got the recipe for major internal conflict. I can easily see some characters tempted by his philosophy, while others reject it outright, causing fractures within the team before they even get to the main fight. And that's where I think the Fantastic Four are going to play a pivotal role. Their connection to Doom isn't just surface level. In the comics, Doom and Reed Richards are two sides of the same coin, both brilliant, both driven, but one willing to compromise while the other is not. Translating that into the MCU, I think Reed is going to become the voice warning everyone about Doom's true intentions. He'll be the one saying, I know him, I know what he's capable of. And yet, the irony will be that Reed's own technology may be what opened the door for Doom to take control in the first place. That creates a brilliant dynamic where Reed feels both guilt and responsibility, while Doom revels in proving that he, not Reed, was right all along. And honestly, from a storytelling perspective, putting Reed in direct opposition to RDJ's Doom gives us some of the richest character drama Marvel could ever mine. But what about Wakanda? We already know Vibranium is going to be a target, and Shuri's role as Black Panther positions her as a key defender against Doom's plans. I don't think Marvel included her new suit in that teaser just for show. I think Wakanda will become one of the first battlegrounds where Doom makes his power move. Imagine Doom invading not just for resources, but for the symbolic victory of conquering a nation that's prided itself on never being colonized or dominated. That clash would carry immense emotional weight, especially considering Wakanda's role in resisting Thanos. To have Doom show up and overpower them would instantly establish him as a threat who outpaces anything they've faced before. And I wouldn't be surprised if Doom even tries to justify it, claiming that Wakanda's vibranium should be used to stabilize the multiverse, not hoarded by one nation. That's exactly the kind of rhetoric that makes him dangerous. There's a twisted logic to it. The X-Men's entrance into this saga could complicate things even more. From what we've seen teased, their arrival won't just be a side plot, it'll be deeply connected to Doom's manipulations of the multiverse. I imagine mutants from different realities being pulled into our main timeline because of Doom's incursions. That would be a smart move on Marvel's part, because it explains their sudden presence without retconning decades of history. And here's the kicker. Doom could see mutants as tools for his empire. Imagine him making an offer to Magneto or even Storm. Join me, and I'll create a universe where mutants aren't feared, where they rule instead of hide. That temptation would be hard to resist for some characters, and it sets the stage for the X-Men to be divided right out of the gate. Some might fight against Doom, while others reluctantly side with him. And that split immediately makes their introduction relevant to the larger story. Now, one thing I've noticed about Marvel's strategy is that they love parallels. Thanos had the Black Order, a group of lieutenants who enforced his will. I think Doom is going to get his own version of that. Maybe not the Black Order exactly, but a cadre of powerful variants who serve as his inner circle. Imagine a corrupted Captain America variant leading his armies, or a Doctor Strange variant channeling dark magic in Doom's name. These characters wouldn't just be cannon fodder. They'd be emotional daggers pointed at the audience, forcing us to watch beloved heroes reimagined as villains. And that's where the Avengers are going to struggle most. Because it's not just about fighting Doom, it's about fighting echoes of the people they loved and lost. Something else I can't stop thinking about is how Marvel might visually stage these confrontations. In Infinity War, every battle was split across different fronts: Wakanda, Titan, and the streets of New York. I think Doomsday will use a similar approach, but with an added multiversal twist. We could see simultaneous battles happening across collapsing realities, with heroes scattered and trying to regroup. Doom, meanwhile, sits at the center, pulling the strings and forcing them to collide in ways they're not prepared for. That's how you build stakes that feel bigger than even the Infinity Saga, by making the battlefield itself unstable, shifting, collapsing, while the villain thrives in the chaos. And here's where the real emotional punch comes in. Doom doesn't think of himself as the bad guy. He truly believes that if he doesn't rule, everything will fall apart. That conviction is going to challenge the Avengers in ways they haven't been challenged before. They're used to fighting enemies who want destruction, control, or power. But what happens when they're fighting someone who genuinely believes he's the savior? That ideological conflict is going to cut deep, especially for characters like Sam Wilson, who's still trying to define what it means to be Captain America in this new world. How do you inspire hope when the villain makes such a compelling case? That's the question Marvel wants us asking. And then, of course, we can't ignore the possibility of Doom recruiting an alternate Tony Stark. The thought of RDJ playing against himself, Doom and Stark on screen together, would be the kind of meta-cinematic event Marvel dreams about. It would blur the line between nostalgia and reinvention in a way that no other franchise could pull off. Imagine the horror on Sam's face as he watches a Tony Stark variant fight for Doom's cause. Imagine Peter Parker seeing the man who mentored him but twisted beyond recognition. That's not just spectacle. That's raw emotional storytelling that weaponizes our own attachment to these characters. And Marvel knows it. If you step back and look at all these moving pieces, the fractured Avengers, the guilt-ridden Fantastic Four, the divided X-Men, Wakanda under siege, it becomes clear that Avengers Doomsday isn't about one epic fight. It's about a test of ideology. Every character will be forced to answer a question. Do you believe in Doom's vision, or do you resist it, even if resistance means collapse? That's why Doom works so well as the next big bad. He doesn't just threaten lives, he threatens belief systems. And by tying that to Robert Downey Jr., Marvel ensures that every time Doom speaks, every declaration, every monologue is going to feel personal. We've trusted that voice for over a decade. Now we'll be forced to question it. That's genius storytelling. The moment everything has been building toward is that inevitable collision. Doom standing alone against a coalition of heroes, each one representing a different corner of the Marvel universe. But what makes this confrontation so unique is that it won't feel like a straightforward battle of good versus evil. Instead, it will feel like a reckoning. every character who steps up against Doom will be forced to confront not just his power, but the temptation of his philosophy. Because Doom doesn't simply throw armies and magic at them, he offers visions of what could be. Imagine him whispering to Peter Parker that he can restore Tony, Aunt May, or even prevent the events of No Way Home. Picture him telling Sam Wilson he can create a world where no one questions his leadership, where Captain America is universally respected again. Doom's most dangerous weapon isn't his armor or sorcery, it's his ability to prey on desire. That's what makes the final act so heavy. It's not just a fight for survival, it's a fight for integrity. I think Marvel's going to structure Doom's downfall, or at least his first defeat, in a way that mirrors Infinity War's shock ending, but with a twist. Instead of Doom winning outright, I see the heroes managing to fracture his control, but at an enormous cost. The Fantastic Four will likely take center stage in this clash, with Reed Richards being forced to prove why his vision of hope matters more than Doom's authoritarian control. I can almost picture the heartbreaking moment where Reed and Doom go head to head, not just physically but ideologically, with Doom reminding Reed that every failure, every broken universe is because of his weakness. That's the emotional duel that could anchor the entire finale. But Marvel won't make it easy. They'll let Doom showcase just how invincible he truly is, tearing apart battlefields, commanding armies of corrupted variants, wielding relics like the Ten Rings, and then only losing because the heroes managed to unify across their divisions. That's the key message here. Doom can only be stopped by unity, by heroes choosing each other over the temptation of power. And yet, I don't think Marvel is going to tie everything up neatly. If anything, Doomsday feels like it will end on a bittersweet, cliffhanger-heavy note. My gut says Doom won't actually die or be permanently defeated. Instead, we'll see him retreat, but not before leaving behind devastation that makes Thanos' snap look small in comparison. Imagine universes collapsing into one another, heroes stranded in alternate realities, timelines shattered beyond recognition. Marvel has teased Secret Wars as the ultimate endgame, and Doom is absolutely the key to making that possible. His survival ensures that story continues, but his loss in Doomsday gives audiences just enough hope to want to follow the heroes into the next chapter. That's how Marvel keeps the hype train running, by giving us the illusion of a win, but reminding us that the war is far from over. Now, one detail I haven't touched on yet, but I think could be massive, is how Marvel handles Doom's ultimate motivation. In the comics, Doom often justifies his actions by insisting he could govern better than anyone else. But in the MCU, I think they're going to layer in something even deeper. The idea that Doom sees the multiverse as inherently broken, and only through his control can it be stabilized. That puts him in direct philosophical conflict with Kang. Think about it. Kang's whole thing was pruning timelines, preventing chaos by restricting possibility. Doom, on the other hand, might argue that the multiverse can't be trimmed. It must be reforged entirely. That creates a chilling possibility. Doom as a replacement villain, not just for the Avengers, but for Kang himself. And if that's where Marvel is heading, then Doomsday becomes the movie that erases the Kang Dynasty storyline entirely, recentering the saga around Doom's dominance. And let's not forget the emotional hooks Marvel loves to use in these finales. If the rumors are true about Chris Evans returning as an alternate Cap, or even Hugh Jackman's Wolverine being pulled into the fray, you can bet Marvel will milk those moments for maximum impact. Imagine Doom standing triumphant over a battlefield with variants of our most beloved heroes kneeling at his side. It would be an image that both horrifies and excites fans, because it forces us to reconcile the legacy of those characters with this new, terrifying reality. And then, just as it feels like all hope is lost, you get that final stand. Not by one hero, not by a single chosen figure, but by a coalition. That's the message Marvel has been building since Phase 4. It's no longer about one man in a suit or one soldier with a shield. It's about legacy, community, and the idea that the mantle of Avenger belongs to many, not just one. One moment I can practically see already is Doom finally losing control of one of his corrupted variants. Maybe it's a Tony Stark variant who realizes just how far Doom has twisted his ideals, or a corrupted Strange breaking free of Doom's grip. That spark of rebellion could be the domino that topples his plan, creating an opening for the heroes to strike. It would be poetic to have a version of Stark, the man Doom most mirrors, be the one who cracks the armor of his ideology. And the emotional resonance of RDJ playing both roles, the tyrant and the betrayer, would be the kind of cinematic moment fans talk about for decades. That's why I don't think Marvel cast him in this role lightly. They know the emotional weight he carries, and they're going to exploit it to the fullest. The other key thread I see playing out in the climax is the symbolism of the team logos we saw teased in that early footage. Avengers, Fantastic Four, X-Men, Black Panther. Those weren't just marketing teases, they were promises. In the final act, I think we'll literally see those factions standing shoulder to shoulder, fighting together not as isolated groups but as one force. And Marvel will drive that home visually, showing the logos side by side, reminding us that this is bigger than any single franchise. It's the convergence of every Marvel story we've followed for decades. Doom isn't just a villain for the Avengers, he's the villain for everyone. And that scope is what makes this saga feel like the true successor to the Infinity Saga. But even as the heroes rally, the cost will be staggering. I wouldn't be surprised if Doomsday ends with major casualties. Maybe not permanent deaths for every character, but at least one or two losses that redefine the stakes. Imagine Reed Richards sacrificing himself to trap Doom temporarily, or Shuri losing Wakanda's vibranium to Doom's forces. Marvel needs to prove that Doom isn't just another obstacle. They need to show that he leaves scars. And those scars will carry forward into Secret Wars, ensuring that the stakes remain sky high. By the time the credits roll, I expect the audience will feel the same way they did leaving Infinity War, stunned, exhilarated, but desperate for what comes next. Because Doom, even in defeat, won't feel defeated. He'll feel inevitable. And Marvel will make sure we leave the theater knowing that the real war hasn't even begun. That's the brilliance of this setup. It makes Doom more than just a villain. It makes him the axis around which the entire multiverse saga turns.